In this exciting episode, Perry and Della play surrogate dad and mom to a young man who's just trying to figure out the best way to use $20,000 he found in an abandoned house. You know, typical teenage problems. It's Season 2, Episode 3 of Perry Mason, The Case of the Pint Sized Client. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy, and my purpose here is pretty simple: provide an audio companion to the greatest legal drama in television history, Perry Mason. I plan to do a pod for every episode of the television series, and as time permits, I will look at some of those made-for-TV movies too. I'll be working through the series in the order in which the episodes were aired. Each episode, I'll give a brief refresher on the plot, and if the episode was based on a novel, I'll compare the book with its television adaptation. Next, I'll list some key pieces of trivia as well as tackle the episode's main theme. We'll feature a Perry proverb, a moment of wisdom from the man himself, and then we'll finish with a post-case water cooler where, just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can rehash the ins and outs of their adventures. But first, to the law library! Each episode in the law library, we return to prior cases to refresh our memory about Perry's past so we can find fresh precedents for future cases. Today in the law library, we talk about finders keepers, the problem that Nikki Renzi, the titular pint-sized client from this episode, comes to Perry for legal advice about.
Is finders keepers according to Hoyle?
Here's the law. If you find lost property, you can keep it under common law unless the original owner claims it. This brings us to the larger problem of robbery in the world of Perry Mason. A quick memory scan shows that infidelity and marital strife.
How much are you asking for the trailer?
Well, he said he wanted $2,500, but...
Just a moment, Arlene. That trailer legally belongs to you.
Then I can always get my money back.
Constitute, in general, the greatest motive for murder in Perryland. But robbery, pretty close behind. There was the jewel theft in the case of the Restless Redhead, some stolen dancing fans in the case of the fan dancer's horse, a stolen fortune, and then a stolen trailer and diary in the case of the sunbather's diary. Note this exchange that Perry has with his client about original ownership. There was the stolen cash that provides the motive in the case of the green-eyed sister, the stolen diary at the heart of the case of the screaming woman, and what a can of ethical worms that diary is.
Now, you listen to me carefully, Dr. Barnes. I have every reason to believe that the contents of this envelope belong to you. We even took the chance of writing in your name and address as sender. However, subsequent research has convinced me that that action was illegal. Consequently, I must turn this envelope over to the police.
Oh, you can't do that.
I'm sorry, Doctor.
And stolen letters and diamonds in the case of the terrified typist. Oh, Nikki, I really wish that we lived in a world where it was as easy as finders keepers. But in Perryland, everybody's trying to find something that you would rather keep. So you better pray that Perry's in the law library getting prepared for your defense. Now, without further ado, let's get to the plot of this episode. The Case of the Pint Sized Client. So what if you like whiskey? Doesn't mean you can't be a degenerate bank robber, too. They're not mutually exclusive. It just means that when you get hired to rob a bank, your employer's probably not going to trust you very much.
Half now and half when we finish the job.
Frank, you can trust me.
Yeah, but I can't trust this.
So, the bank robbery goes down, and the whiskey lover is part of the crew. Also, the bank robbery gets violent.
All right, everybody, let's get with it. If you cooperate, nobody gets hurt. Which one is Hayes? All right, Hayes, you know the combination to the safe. Open it.
The head bank robber hides the loot in an abandoned house, but a young man, our pint-sized client himself, Nicky Renzi, sees him ditch it. Next thing we know, Nicky's in Perry's office wanting some legal clarification.
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
Did you come here to ask me about the law or tell me about it?
Does young Nicky want the cash for himself? Of course not. He's a TV kid with a heart of gold, a true precursor to lovable tykes like Opie Taylor and Richie Petrie. He's bought his granddad a brand new coat. I mean, the granddad is a wannabe inventor and apparently shivers a lot in the winter, and this is Los Angeles, mind you, where it can't get that cold during the winter. So you know Nicky's looking out for his family. But alas, the cops show up after Nicky's confessed what he's done to his grandfather, and you know what that means.
I'm looking for Anthony Renzi.
I am Anthony Renzi, officer. What is it? What is it you want?
Hey, I think I found what I'm looking for.
Let's run through the list of suspects. First, there's old whiskey sipper himself.
I asked you if you went up to Frank Anderson's apartment.
Yeah, I went up there.
And did you have several torn $100 bills with you?
Yeah, but that had nothing to do with this robbery.
Then what did it have to do with?
Well, Frank asked me to hold on to those torn bills for a couple of days.
Then there is the wife of the deceased, who has this tete-a-tete with an ogling Paul Drake.
My name's Paul Drake.
Bully for you.
May I come in?
You're in. What's the matter? Don't you approve of my widow's weeds?
I didn't say anything.
You look.
You blame me?
I'm an entertainer. This is what I work in.
And the show must go on, is that it?
My husband didn't leave any insurance. Do you know what a funeral costs?
They turn out not to be the murderers, though. Perry gets to the bottom of the case with some good old-fashioned outside the court replicate the original conditions of the crime sleuthing.
If Your Honor, please, defense was under the impression that this experiment was intended to be an exact conditions test. And according to Miss Gilbert's sworn testimony, this air conditioner was on and functioning in exactly this manner during the entire holdup. Is that not correct, Miss Gilbert?
Yes, it is.
And you know who the murderer is? The upstanding bank man who got popped in the jaw in the episode's second scene.
Now, Mr. Hayes, you testified that after the robbery, you subsequently remembered having seen the defendant, Anthony Renzi, in this office when he attempted to open an account with you. Is that correct?
That's right.
At that time, did you give the defendant, Anthony Renzi, the combination to this safe?
Of course not.
But you just heard Mr. Cagle. Without knowing the combination, no one could open the safe while the air conditioner was on, yet you testified you alone had the combination.
Next, you'll be saying I killed Frank Anderson.
I'm saying that now.
He's the strong, silent type who doesn't even have the heart to confess his crime. Has the entire thing motivated Perry to start a new scholarship program? Perhaps something like the Little Mason Urban Achievers? Not quite.
How can I ever repay Mr. Mason? That I don't know.
Well, I'm going to take care of it, Gramp. I told Miss Street I'm going to get a job.
I don't know if that last line is an honest gag or not. I hope that both Nicky and Gramps are headed for a better future. Now, Let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. A Della is something about a particular actor or actress featured in the episode. And a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our Paul this week concerns safe breaking. Okay, you can apparently get really good at breaking a safe.
Then I was employed for the next 5 years by the Haynes Protection Company, manufacturers of time locks, safes, and alarm systems. And then after that, my present employment.
If it please the court, defense will stipulate Mr. Cagle is a qualified expert.
But a rattling air conditioner makes it impossible. This episode's Paul prompt: was the safe used in this bank the height of 1958 safe technology? Or was it passé? Was the old hold your ear against a safe and figure out the combination already something of the past? Or was it the best way for a bank to safeguard its money? Our Della this week concerns Nita Talbot, a.k.a. Iris Anderson, the wife of the decedent.
Would it be asking too much of you to move?
Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Anderson.
Nita was born Anita Sokol in 1930 in New York City. Her last name means falcon in Polish. She went to Hollywood, got a contract at the age of 18 from Warner Brothers, adopted a screen name, and got her first film role the very next year at 19. And she was appearing in film and television shows until 1997. Her sister, also an actress. She married, that is the sister of Nita Talbot, married Carl Betts, a.k.a. Dr. Stone, from The Donna Reed Show. Nita Talbot appeared on a wide variety of 60s television shows. She's still alive and kicking at the age of 89. Just like her character on this episode, she had some marriage problems of her own in the 1950s. The year she appeared on Perry, 1958, she was getting a divorce from her first husband, Don Gordon. You probably recognize if you plugged his name into Google Images. He's a classic that guy actor, appeared alongside his friend Steve McQueen in several films. Nita Talbot's claim to fame, claim to infamy, is that she was nominated for an Emmy, congrats, for a guest performance on anybody? Hogan's Heroes? Yep, she was Russian spy Maria in an episode titled The Hostage and was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy. She lost that year to Marion Lorne, who was dead, and won the award posthumously for her role as Aunt Clara in Bewitched. Our Perry this episode involves our intrepid hero's office space. Who knew this dude had a railing in his office? He should be taking clients out there more often. It's the perfect place to have conversations like this.
You know something? I don't think the law is fair.
Well, it tries to be, Nicky. If you'd be a little more specific, perhaps the law could help you.
Keep that office spiffy, Perry. The theme for this episode is, of course, family. I don't know that a show built around murder and a dystopian criminal justice system could ever be considered family programming, but Perry's really trying. In our last episode, Perry intervened in a family run amok, teaching the grandson of a powerful but bedridden businessman how to fight for himself. In the case of the Pint Sized Client, Perry doesn't need to teach Nicky how to fight. He needs to rescue Nicky and his grandfather from a fight they can't possibly win without his help. Nicky is anything but a rebel without a cause. In contrast with Silver Spoon Ted Balfour, Nicky is ready to rule the world. I mean, this guy buys his grandfather a coat with some of the cash that he's found and hands over a lot of the loot to his grandfather so his gramps can support himself as he works on his invention. Plus, he's got Della as a surrogate mom. You know this family means a lot to Perry because we get to see them hugging it out in the final scene. If the show stays this family sweet, it'll need to see a dentist ASAP. Now, it's time for a Perry proverb. We never get anything like a full case from either legal team in these episodes, but sometimes Perry will summarize the best parts of the prosecution's case. It shows us that he knows what he's up against, and it also provides a chance for Perry to put the screws to his own client and let him or her know that their trustworthiness, their reliance on truth is essential. Perry, frankly, is pretty bleak in his meeting with Grandpa Renzi. But just when hope looks like it is at its dimmest, Perry breaks out this light-giving proverb.
They have a lot on their side. But we have the truth on our side.
Yep, all you need to see clearly is the truth. That, and have a vocal advocate for said truth, preferably by the name of Perry Mason. Now, let's grab a swig from the water cooler.
You know, there is one thing I don't understand.
Go on, Paul.
Our research prompt from the last episode involved the case that Perry invokes as a precedent in his writ of habeas corpus concerning double jeopardy.
Do you have any authorities that bear on such a case as this?
I do. Among other citations listed here, Your Honor will be interested in the case of People versus McDaniels, 137 California 192.
We asked, was this a real case? Oh, it's a real case, all right. 1902. Then we asked, was it applicable? Here's the skinny. Samuel McDaniels beat his wife Bessie in 1901. He was arrested for this heinous crime and convicted of battery, serving less than a year in jail. But he was subsequently arrested and convicted for assault with intent to kill for the same crime. This conviction, the second one, carried a 14-year punishment. His defense lawyer appealed the conviction, claiming that Samuel McDaniels had already been tried and convicted of a lesser crime. The higher court in California accepted the appeal, and McDaniels did not have to serve the stiffer sentence. I don't know, I think Mason's claim of double jeopardy might just have worked. As always, I'd love feedback about this particular episode or the podcast in general. Was there something about this episode that you'd like to comment on, or something that you'd like to correct? You can leave comments on the pod's website at theperrypod.libsyn.com, or you can email me at theperrypod@gmail.com. You'll find those links in the show notes. Thanks to my dad, Aunt Mai, and everyone who has responded to these episodes. All Perry Pod episodes are available via Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. Thanks again for joining me on this pod journey. Join us next time as Perry goes military and reaches out his hand to Uncle Sam. It's the case of the sardonic sergeant. Join me, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!